We're in our 7th year now. We've raised over £650,000. And I still can attend senior things and be one of 4 or 5 out of 40 females. Positivity, I think, is infectious. But that's one of the joys, I think, of being in the office. Use less water, use less power, have less waste. And if everybody did that and actually had a care and regard for what goes around comes around.
Welcome to the People and Property Equals Progress podcast, brought to you by Lambeth Smith Hampton. Here we go beyond the bricks and mortar and take a deep dive into the fascinating stories behind the business. What makes LSH unique isn't the property market that they operate in, it's the people that drive it forward. The breadth and diversity, the imagination and the ambition of their people. Every episode, we'll sit down with an inspiring guest and they'll share their journey, their vision and their passion. So let's get started. Thank you so much for joining us today. Very excited to speak to you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Emma, and what you do in the property industry and how you've collaborated with Lambeth Smith Hampton?
Thank you very much for having me. Nice to be here. My name is Emma Mackenzie and my job title is Head of Asset Management and ESG at NewRiver. NewRiver is a real estate investment trust and we own, manage and operate retail assets up and down the United Kingdom. So we principally shopping centres and retail parks. So we have a total of over 70 retail assets, 40 odd shopping centres and the balance is retail parks. And I've been with NewRiver almost 13 years, which I don't hope is not unlucky, but
no, not at all.
Almost 13 years. And so my background was I trained as a chartered surveyor, did a real estate degree and qualified as a chartered surveyor and have always worked in retail.
Did you always know when you were a young girl that you were going to come into this space?
No, almost by accident, really. At school, I always thought I wanted to be a teacher. And I think any job, there's an element of being a teacher in every job, isn't there? There's people always younger than you and less experienced than you. And so you're always, hopefully, people are learning something off you. But I thought I wanted to be a teacher and probably until my last couple of years at school. And I suddenly thought, gosh, if I'm a teacher, I'll be teaching the same thing year in, year out, sitting in a little staff room for the rest of my life. I don't know, maybe I felt that would be a bit repetitive. But my father had owned a bit of commercial property and that sparked a bit of interest. And then we had a week of careers talks after our sort of O-levels, and that kind of, after you finished exams before the summer holidays start, we used to have we had a week of professionals coming in to tell us what they do. So we'd kind of slightly boring accountants and lawyers and doctors, and then this rather dashing surveyor came in.
Really?
And he told us about property and commercial property, and I thought, actually, that sounds really interesting, and that sparked a bit of interest. So that's what I did. I did a real estate degree.
That's really interesting, because I've spoken to a lot of people who said that that's something that we need to do more of in property, because property is so broad. Yeah. You know, I think probably young people watch Sunset Boulevard or whatever it is, and they think it's a state agency. But there are so many different personal traits that will succeed in property that actually going into schools and talking about different size of property will make it much more inclusive. I mean, my father was a chartered surveyor and I didn't know one other female chartered surveyor the only females in his office back in the 90s were secretaries. And so it was like, it wasn't an avenue that I thought that I could go into because of that. So it's really amazing that you had that opportunity at school, because that's what we're talking about, trying to bring back.
And actually, even in my year, as a student, there was maybe 70 in our year. There was 10 girls, only 10 out of 70. Yeah. There's been progress, but there's such a long way to go. And actually, to get more young people into property, and the whole perception of the property industry as a whole is not strong enough. So with the
do you feel some pressure to be a mentor, to be a female leader, to kind of spread that message?
Not necessarily a pressure, but certainly a desire to articulate how interesting the profession can be and the avenues it can take you, and actually how rounded it is. Because I mean, certainly the degree I did and the job I do, you engage with all sorts of other professionals. So a lot of it is law. You know, every property involves a contract of some description.
Probably too many.
Architects, we do a lot of work with architects. We do a lot with QSs, with building surveyors, project managers, property managers, letting agents. All sorts of spectrums of different professionals. That is not known well enough. You know, lawyers will tend to work with a client of different sort of businesses, but actually we get to work with a whole raft of different professionals.
Yeah, meet so many different people.
So many different people, and particularly in retail, or if you're letting any building and owning any building, you're then dealing with the consumer. are and the people that use those buildings and the purposes of those buildings. So, and that's not conveyed strongly enough, accurately enough to young people choosing the profession.
It's a profession that will always be there. We will always need buildings
and property. So I think there's a lot could be done about education of young people and what the profession can hold. I mean, there's still not enough females in it. There's still, and girls are so good at it. They really are. I mean, the girls in our business.
I mean, when we met at the Lambeth Smith Hampton the ski challenge, I think we met because you won the women's trophy, didn't you?
Oh,
yes. I mean, and that's the same thing. We wanted to celebrate that because we want more women not just to participate in the ski challenge, but to be in the industry and feel like they have a place in the industry.
Yeah, and I still can attend things and literally be senior things and be one of 4 or 5 out of 40 females at things.
Yeah.
It's still not great. And actually, I've been very lucky in
Is
that...
Is there a board or anything in UK?
Yeah, there's real estate balance. There's all sorts of women groups. And actually, I'm an advocate of anybody trying to improve the diversity of the industry. But actually, I think a lot of it is to do with educating the males. It's not about sticking together as women.
It's about male allies.
It's about everybody.
We always get that wrong, actually. It's not about us being feminists. It's about men speaking out about how everyone has an opportunity.
And I think there's women have to have babies. It's women that have babies, and there's been a lot of improvement in shared parental leave and all those things. Actually, I mean, I took 11 years out. I had my first baby when I was 26 and I had my fourth baby when I was 32, so I had them close together. But I was at home for 11 years, and I got back in, in my late 30s, got back into the industry, which I was very grateful for. But actually, so many of the skills I learnt with being at home with 4 young children are what I apply in my business life. Managing expectations, using your time, getting things done, stress, resilience, but also just understanding that there's always going to be somebody negative. One of my 4 was always in a bad mood. If you let that bad mood dominate you, before you know it, everyone's in a bad mood. So there's always going to be somebody muttering negative in an office. Go with the positive majority.
Do you bring that as a leader in your team as well? Because I think everyone,
like to think so.
You want to have that open communication that people can talk about what they're feeling and what they're going through, but then you've got to be able to change any stresses into kind of a hopeful message.
Correct, and also that it's positivity. I think is infectious. It's definitely people. The more people that are positive and glass half full, it's better for everybody. If everyone can kind of keep the up. And actually, that's one of the things about being in an office, because that's really changed since COVID, isn't it? Is the number of days we all spend in an office. But that's one of the joys, I think, of being in the office, is that everyone has a good and a bad day.
Yeah, you can share.
Deals can go wrong, something can fall apart, but somebody next to you has something good has happened. So if they, you hear somebody go, yes, got that done.
Balance.
Great. Whereas somebody's saying, that's fallen apart. It's absorbed in the moment.
Also, young people struggle with communication anyway, because there's so many outlets to not communicate directly.
That's right.
You can communicate through emails or text. Even telephone calls are dying out now because we just rely on other modes where we don't have to share part of ourselves. But the industry of property is people-based.
Absolutely.
You've got to be able to communicate with everyone.
Completely. And actually, it's building relationships. Often, say whether it's our MPs or our councillors or anybody that was in the towns in which we own assets, is knowing all the stakeholders, the principal of the college, all the kind of major stakeholders, that actually knowing those people and being part of that conversation is such an important part of asset management and of how you own a significant part of a town centre. Because it's not about having the conversation when something goes wrong. You've got to know them before that. So it's making these introductions when you've got nothing particular to be asking or sharing. Because then when you do need something, a sort of an ask of anyone, you've established the connection already, and you've spoken to them, and you can lift the phone again.
Now your area of expertise is the high street, which is a very challenging place right now. But how do you characterise the biggest shift that we've seen in UK high streets over the last 20 years that you've been in retail and property? Well,
it's been a combination of factors that have shifted the retail property aspect of retail and the retailers' need for physical space. The internet was significant. So the start of the internet, which is now 30 odd years ago, but really what really accelerated the use of online shopping was smartphones and the accessibility of being able to shop when you're literally on the move, and that you can price compare and all those components. So the retailers' demand for physical space, that shrinking of physical space has really impacted the need for it, and hence town centres had shopping centres all built in the 70s, 80s, 90s that's contracted. So there's been an oversupply of retail space, and then that consequently impacts the rents and hence consequently impacts the whole investment case for owning property. Rateable values rose in the back of the boom of rents rising when retailers did need space. So there the rates were penal, the rents all then come down, and build costs and all the aspects of changing anything becomes prohibitive because the capital values have all come down. So I'll agree, it has been really challenging at times.
Are we seeing a shift in the people who are succeeding in high street? So for me, I love a high street, but on the same time, I want instant gratification of buying something on Amazon and it be delivered today or tomorrow, because the need of want is so instant now. That's right. And that's really quite sad, because we used to carve out time to go down there. Equally though, on the other side of that, I will always go down and have a coffee in the high street. I go to the high street when I want to feel or touch something, or for like well-being. I will go and do Pilates at the high street. Are we seeing a shift of how a high street can succeed in terms of its offering?
Most definitely. I mean, certainly, rightly or wrongly, the viability or the it's like an economic barometer of a town, isn't it? It's how vibrant the high street is. So when you see kind of vacancy and underinvested and poor high streets, you immediately kind of associate with deprivation and poverty and all the negative things. But what's important now is that high streets are not just about shopping. And actually COVID, dreadful though it was, it accelerated a lot of the change that was happening already. So there was an oversupply, there was issues in the high street with space and demand, but it pushed a lot of that through. Actually, a number of retailers who were underinvested and poorly run for years, they've fallen over. It's taken that competition out of the market. The retailers that have survived all of that are super efficient. The use of data and insight is massive for them and for us, has just continued to improve. And actually the recognition that a town centre, for it to be really vibrant and sustainable longer term, people have to live in town centres, and in the pressure of the demand for housing throughout the United Kingdom. So people living back in town centres is a positive thing. But those people then need to access doctor services and wellbeing services, so it's everything. So all of that feeding into then a town centre being self-sufficient, really, and people being able to live, work and play in those town centres. And again, the lack of necessity for cars and transport and all those, it all feeds into the kind of sustainability agenda. So, but these things don't happen overnight. It's property is not it's not a quick win.
Can you pinpoint a high street that's booming around the UK? So I live near Kingston upon Thames. Yeah. And for me, I feel like it is always busy. Yeah. And just ticking your boxes there. It's got really good transport, it's got hospital, it's got a huge amount of residential, it's got cinema, it's got entertainment space, it's small enough that everything is compact. I don't think I ever see a shop closed there.
And it's also it's got wealth around it, hasn't it? There's
people will get there with
so
it.
It's any towns where there is money, people earning money and spending money is a big component of retailers and occupiers wanting to actually run businesses in those areas. So that obviously helps, but also that some towns that never did overexpand, so that tensions weren't put on shopping centres or shopping centres weren't built, and there's still a tension and a supply and demand tension for space because they're smaller. And also that the physical, some town centres are just more attractive than others, aren't they? They're just physically nicer looking. But
it feels like that the need from a town centre is much more heightened now. Like it can't just be retail, there has to be things to do.
There has to be things to do.
You go past and there's a skydiving shop next to a clothes shop now.
There's
a
Pilates studio,
everything, isn't there?
So it's a combination of goods and services, but actually the retailers that are the most successful retailers are the ones that are omni-channel, so that are operating both a very successful online platform and a high street presence, because people like both. So people very often browse online, they'll look at what's there, then they'll go and physically go in and touch and feel, and then they might then buy online.
Is there any brand that inspires you by how they've adapted? Because I know John Lewis, for instance, is a brand that has an online presence and is still got some of its shops, and they're putting all their eggs in the baskets for some shops, but they're now doing like clothes rentals, which they're really, for me, I feel like they're always trying to stay with it and change where they're at.
And you look at the two big ones on the high street, obviously, are Next and M&S. And I mean, M&S was on its knees a few years ago. I mean, and an ageing shopper, a poor average, food offer. The whole thing has been totally turned around.
It has, isn't it?
And
so it's aspirational now.
And they've got they host and entertain other brands. They never did that, both on their food departments and in their clothing. Next are the same. So Next have absolutely continued just to kind of chart the path, because they opened up their online platform years before anyone else did to other retailers, and it just unheard of. Why would you be stocking and selling somebody else's? But actually it drove traffic to their stores and drove traffic to their websites, and they've continued to thrive.
So they kind of had to lose their ego and think about the bigger picture, and they succeeded
completely. And that actually collaboration is what's driven their success. And actually, looking outward rather than looking inward has been the most successful thing. And it's it's very similar with property. Is that owning an asset is an asset in a town centre or a city centre or an area that if you just look at what you're doing and without looking at everybody else and understanding what the needs and requirements of that town are, you're never going to succeed.
No, you've got to fit into the
to be
community.
A successful owner of retail real estate, you need the retailer successful, and their success is our success, but the town needs to be successful. The various stakeholders all being aware of, you rise on a tide, don't you? You're not going to, pull up when everyone else is sinking. So it's, that's why it's such an interesting.
It is, isn't it? There's so much problem solving and reacting to both government policies, the economy, natural disaster. There's so much in property.
And actually, it did make people really turn around and appreciate what's on their doorstep.
Post-pandemic, actually, I used to come into town for this and a different part of town for that. But now I look at everything local to me, and I will always choose to go local, even if maybe the quality isn't as good. I just first of all, I don't want to travel, and I think that if you can invest in your own area, you're also going to benefit.
Right.
Everyone's going to benefit.
Yeah, it's sort of a circular
but
economy.
We were in this kind of system where we travelled for everything,
or had it delivered. The amount of information that the retailers now have because of online and because of the amount of data that's available.
Quite scary.
Yes and no. I mean, we access Lloyd's banking data, which is spend data effectively, and so we have information on every single store, what the kind of turnover will be, where the customer comes from, how far they've come from, what income bracket they're in, what age bracket they're in. But for us, how can you possibly make something that's successful without the detail of that information? Because who your customer is, what customer you want to try and appeal to, that's living locally, that's not using those facilities. So all of that is just vital information, and then trying to get people to come more often, spend more money, and hence the retailers are thriving, and hence we will thrive. Wow. So it's
so interesting.
And I think you're right. Young people particularly would have no idea that that's what a surveyor does. Yeah, no idea.
But obviously the role of a surveyor is continually developing itself as well.
Yeah. I mean, asset management now is, as I said earlier, engaged with so many different people. There's so many sources of information. There's so many numbers that...
Obviously, I mean, you do a lot of that by yourself and within your own business. But what do you lean into Lambert Smith Hampton for?
Lambert Smith Hampton do our property management of probably about almost half of our portfolio, or certainly a third of our balance sheet assets, the assets that we own, because we own assets and then we also asset manage assets for other people, and that's either from private equity or from councils, and also we've got joint ventures where we co-own some assets with capital partner. But on our balance sheet assets where they own them 100%, we use two property managers. We use Workman and we use LSH, and LSH do that. We use the Belfast office of LSH who do a phenomenal job, and actually right at the beginning when Workman were actually doing all our property management, NewRiver were starting and building, Workman were our only property managers, and I got involved in just overseeing the property management just to try and get more out of it. And actually it's such a vital part of asset management is the property management, and the property management is basically the operational day-to-day of running an asset, and also the employment of the people, so the centre management team, etc., billing and the collection of rent is our business. So it's really important to get it right, and we only need one provider. Workman were doing it. I'm doing a very good job of it, but I just felt that a bit of competition is a good thing. It keeps everyone on their toes, and also we're a public company. We're very exposed to one provider. If something goes wrong in that, then we're very exposed. So we thought we'd bring in another party to that. And at that stage, so in 2014 we bought a portfolio of 3 shopping centres, one of which was in Northern Ireland, in Belfast, just outside Belfast, called the Abbey Centre. On that, the letting agents were LSH.
Right.
So Creena Collins was the lead agent on it. So she was to continue to do the agency, and her team, and did a very good job.
So she impressed you, and you thought,
totally impressed me.
Keep you involved with this.
And the girl who did the property management was phenomenal. She was the best property manager I would ever worked with. They could take on the rest. They could take some of the existing portfolio and take a chunk there. And when they came to, so it was almost a shoe-in that they were going to get the work, because the girl that was doing the property management and Crean on the agency were so good. But they came to do the pitch for winning some of the property management work. It was in the diary for 11 o'clock one Wednesday morning with myself, our chief exec, and our head of property management. Unbeknownst to me, when it was in the diary, that hour and a half's presentation, Creena had then been in touch with our receptionist and said, could we come in the night before, after 7 o'clock? We want to test all the IT in the room. Can we go in, just make sure we know what we're in, we've been in the room before, we know it all works. We just want to can we have half an hour just to do that? So that was unbeknownst to me. Yeah. And she said, and the meeting's booked for 11 o'clock, could we have the room from 10:30? So when Alan and myself and John came into the room, 5 of them are sitting down.
You're walking into your own office.
Presentations on the screen.
Yeah.
And they're all sitting there. It was the most professional pitch I'd ever seen. So
That's incredible.
they'd won the work before they'd even opened their mouth, because they didn't take it. They didn't assume they were going to get it. They knew they were going to get it. We weren't interviewing anybody else, but they didn't take it for granted, not for a second, that they would win the work. And actually, that's why
amazing work ethic. Yeah.
And that's why we're still there, because they still don't take the work for granted, and they still want to do as professional a job as they possibly can.
They really enjoy working with your company and the collaboration that you've done as well.
Well, I would hope so. I mean, you always hope that anyone you work with, that you like and respect one another, and actually you're all working with the same objectives. And anybody I work with, whether it's internally or externally, is ownership. People take ownership of what they're doing to do it to their best of their ability, and then they're accountable for it. And everybody makes mistakes.
And each has their own role in their team.
Totally, and that we can all make mistakes, and I've made mistakes, LSH made mistakes, but actually being able to say, you dropped the ball in that.
Well, we need to create a culture where people have the confidence to take risks, because otherwise we're suppressing everyone's ability. So with those risks, some of them will pay off, and when they pay off in property, obviously that's massive, but there will be some mistakes, and like you said, as long as you talk about them and learn from them,
that's right,
then you can move forward. Otherwise, everyone will just cap their ability at 80% and not try and be their best.
Right.
So.
And also, I mean, a blame culture is a hideous environment for anyone to work in. So people have got to be able to admit they've done something wrong without fear of some sort of hideous repercussions of it. That's been a positive thing with working with LSH. Is they've done a brilliant job. They continue to do a great job, but they put their hands up if something goes wrong, and they've really worked hard to try and remedy it and do a better job. And they're great fun. Because I mean, if you can't work with people that you have fun with, what's the point if you're kind of dragging people along with you? Whereas, we've had great fun working, particularly on Abbey Centre in Belfast, which is their home patch, and we have a big retail part there as well. We've had a lot of fun. We really have, and it's been a big success. So we sold Abbey Centre earlier this year. So we've owned it since 2014. So we sold it this year. So 11 years we'd owned that, and it was. I did say that. I said to Alan, our chief exec, we agreed a price for someone that was being sold. I said, "Oh, that's my favourite." Abbey Centre's like a child to me. He said, "Really?"
But that's because you care, and that shows why you're successful, because there's people behind every facade, and you've got to be able to let that person feel.
Yeah, and it was a success. It felt like a good one. So that's a good time to move something on. Is when it's a good place, and you're selling it when you've got it somewhere into a good place. So LSH have been so much part of that journey, and so much part of our asset management, and so much part of COVID working with us, because COVID was really challenging. A lot of retailers just literally overnight not paying rent. Everybody been sent home, working from home, dialing into these calls that nobody was really accustomed to doing, and working around the clock to collect rent. So they've been really part of the team, and they've worked very, very collaboratively with Workman, because that's their competitor, but it's their partner. Because and Workman,
is that quite unique to have?
Well, I yes and no. I'm sure it comes down to individuals as well, but Workman and LSH, we're a client to both of them. They both want NewRiver to succeed. Both want our business to do well, for them to do well.
Everyone wins.
Everybody wins, and actually, we all share information. They share information with one another. I'm sure behind the scenes they're saying, "God, doesn't she drive you bloody mad? She's asking for this now." So it gives them somebody to bounce off. It's not they can have a whinge to one another or celebrate each other's successes.
Well, it probably brings more team in. They probably got more.
So. Yeah.
I am actually going to go off piece, because you've talked a lot about being a businesswoman and being inspired by properties that you've seen. But I want to talk about the person, Emma. And is there one property or place that you've been to in your life that has changed you for some reason, positive or negative? I know you're going to say positive because you're a positive person, and why?
Well, I saw some questions, kind of draft questions. I did think a place that's actually changed me, and the only place I can really, certainly a place that shaped me is home, first and foremost. Where I grew up, what my parents instilled in me, being part of a family of four, having a family of four, my own home, my husband and family. Home is a big part of who I am, what I'd want, and what I'd want any of my children to have is a feeling of home, and a feeling where you
is
can
that because
switch
you're
off and
so
relax.
Busy that it's your quiet space and a place where you can control?
Yes, and I mean, it's never felt quiet.
No, 4 kids. Sorry, I don't know what I was thinking.
But it grounds you. Home is what is grounds, and that's why I work is to be able to have a lovely home, and the balance of both has been an absolute privilege. But also, in terms of a place, like a physical place, it has to be London, because I didn't work in London when I graduated. graduated at first. I worked at first in Scotland and Edinburgh, and then had a family relatively young. I was 26 when I first stopped. But actually when I came back to work, had I stayed purely working in London, not ended up with NewRiver and not spending initially some time in London, and then I'm in London every single week, that the opportunities that London gives you and the quality of the work that you're involved with and the people that you meet is all London. London's been
it's just so diverse and multicultural.
Totally.
I mean, from the people to the buildings. We are talking about buildings, just to the spaces. I mean, there are so many green spaces in London, but if you talk to anyone around the world, they'll say, oh, London's a rainy city with loads of concrete. And you're like, no, there is the parks everywhere.
And also just the diversity of everybody I've worked with. Again, it's just Scotland is a smaller place, business is smaller. So all of that has been a wonderful thing, and London's been a fantastic addition. But how my career's gone is being in London. Long may it continue.
Now, you're obviously passionate about sustainability. That's another hat that you wear. How can we bring sustainable practices to the high street? Like, can they coexist? I know this is a very challenging question.
It's very challenging, and we all, having things delivered, etc. But it's nothing happens overnight, and I think it's anything with these ESG. And I'm head of ESG, but I'm not a sustainability. I'm not trained in sustainability. But I just always take it back to just use less, just use less, and whether that's use less water, use less power, have less waste, recycle things, don't waste stuff, is how I kind of think about it. And if everybody did that and actually had a care and regard for the kind of bigger picture, so it's just that circular economy that what goes around comes around.
I always thought I was quite frugal, and I did a test a few years ago where I wore my waist for a week. I don't know if you've seen people doing this.
Oh, no.
So I had a denim jacket and I had clear plastic bags all over, and I don't use a lot of packaging which has got plastic in it. I will always choose the most sustainable food produce that I can. And over a week I accumulated, and weirdly, strangely, I was going to Parliament this week, and I committed to wearing this waist everywhere I went. So I went to Parliament wearing 2 kilos of waste on my jacket, and then I was paddling up and down the Thames with it. But at the end of a week, just for me, I'm a mother as well, but I didn't include my children's waste in this. It was the same weight as a pair of skis that I had accumulated when I thought that I was being, because when you're doing an experiment, you're always like, if you have to write a health diary, you're always writing you have the healthiest week ever. So I thought I was doing well, and it really opened my mind to the changes that we need to make. And actually in America, they now have these supermarkets. I think they're starting to come over where there's no plastics, so everything is individually, and aesthetically they look beautiful. You bring your own containers. I mean, we all have so much Tupperware at home.
I know.
We can just take those with us.
And even those we shouldn't be using. It should be glass.
Well, definitely.
All of that.
Yeah, so it is challenging, and I didn't know if you had a golden rule that you could share that we could all help follow.
I try and be good, but I'm very often bad.
I rent my clothes for Ski Sunday.
Oh, do you?
That's another thing I do, so that it keeps the clothes in that circular economy. I rent clothes all the time, actually, for events. I think clothes renting is really lovely.
So do I. I've rented a few
It's great, isn't it?
It's great. Because
it just feels like you're wearing something someone else will enjoy wear, and the clothes just keeps existing.
Yeah.
As opposed to...
Well, I feel as though I've got 3 daughters and a son, and the number of things that disappear from my wardrobe.
Well, that's great. You must sell it. See, you can't get upset with them because you're like, okay, someone else is wearing it.
Somebody else may as well wear it.
Okay, now looking to the future, looking ahead to the next 5-10 years, what do you believe will be the key structural changes that we can see in UK retail property?
Gosh, I wish I had a crystal ball. I think there's going to continue to be a lot of change. The pace of change is going to continue to get quicker. The use of AI is just rapid, isn't it? How it will influence retail, I think we'll want to consume, everyone will still eat and buy products, etc.
Although in America, actually, in New York, apparently all the chefs are struggling because so many people are on Ozempic that no one's eating out anymore. I heard that restaurants are getting shut down. I didn't see that consequence coming.
And also that even in the UK, people are eating earlier and earlier, so that tables been booked at 8 o'clock is almost a thing of it's becoming less.
I mean, when you go to Spain and they only open up dinner reservations at 9, you're like, oh my God,
yes, I want to be
obviously.
there for 9:30. I know. But that that is a real change, isn't it? People not going out later, alcohol consumption, younger people drinking less,
pubs having to change.
I mean the food and beverage industry it's been really challenging for that industry. So where will that all go? Just difficult to know, and that's before you take into account all the economic factors and the challenges around the cost of living and employment rates and inflation, all those aspects affecting the spend power of everybody, and that will all influence retail. But I'd like to think that the retailers that are providing this goods and services at a price point that people want to spend. If people are spending a lot of money, they like a nice experience to go with it.
And I feel like people are getting behind British brands more than ever. Like if something says made in Britain, it makes you feel proud.
It does me. Yeah.
It does me too. Like I really look at that now. I search for that.
Yeah.
And I think more people are doing that now. And I think young people really care.
Well, there's just more information about it, isn't it? There's where your food comes from. That's much more readily available. People are more aware that why are we having bananas brought from the other side of the world, or apples coming from the other side of the world when there's apples grown up the road. So all of that is just it's just education.
Education, changing expectation, being right. This is a seasonal fruit, so you can have it now and enjoy it now, and then you can't have it for a while. Don't expect
that's right.
You're always going to have it.
Eat within the seasons. All of that.
My sons call them strawberries, Wimbledon strawberries, because we only have them in the summer. Because I'm like, we will only, because then they're British, and then they don't exist.
And then you look forward
so
to
they
them again
go somewhere
next year.
in like December, and someone's got a straw. How have you got Wimbledon strawberries? It's not tennis time.
Well, I just hope that you'd like to think that people will still enjoy social interaction. That's what shopping is, isn't it?
That's what we need. We still need community activities so that people are still talking to people. With all of this technology, to hide behind screens is very, very dangerous. So that is where our high street has its role. Definitely. Bringing us together, doing something
social
together.
Interaction. Yeah, massively. I don't disagree.
So Emma, your proudest career moment? Can you pinpoint one?
Well, it's not so much property related, but it happened through work, really. And we work with an organisation called Trussell, which was rebranded from the Trussell Trust, which is the organisation that supports food banks around the United Kingdom. So in kind of late 2018, I was at one of our shopping centres in Scotland, and one of the costs in the service charge budget was £1,000 going to a food bank. So I was saying, what is that? What exactly is that £1,000 doing? So the next time I was in Paisley a month later, I wanted to go to see a food bank, and I met a lady there who was roughly the same age as me. She had children roughly the same age as my children. We were all kind of school age. She was working in the care sector. Her husband had an accident at work, and she was frustrated and annoyed that by day 5 of the week she was running out of food. But she was feeding a family of 5 on £42 a week. She wasn't seeking pity. She was just frustrated herself for not managing to do that. So to use a food bank, you have to have referrals from either your doctor, from social services, or from a school. So you can't just chip up on the day and say, I need something for tonight's evening meal. But I was horrified that she was feeding a family and she was working on £42 a week. So I thought, surely we can, as a business, do something to support food bank. I found out about food banks. I found out about Trussell. But a food bank is mostly run by local volunteers, and very often they're down a lane somewhere, either in a church hall or so. Working with them, and they didn't have a real estate partner. All the big grocers support Trussell, but they didn't have a real estate partner. And particularly for us, we're town centre. We're UK wide. We could give them a shop window, which rose awareness. We could give them opportunities for volunteers, both at a local level, but also our own team, our own staff could volunteer in a food bank, and we could also write a cheque and do a corporate sponsorship. So I took that to our exco, got that approval at exco. We do write a cheque, and we rolled out all our shopping centres working with local food banks, and our own team in the office. We volunteer at a local food bank in London. Here we are, sort of 6-7 years later. We're in our 7th year now. We've raised over £650,000. We've collected 17.5 tonnes of food. Over 600 volunteering hours have been done by us, and all through COVID. All of that's we've connected people to support less fortunate people, because when we work with brokers and lawyers and all these people, and we can say we're doing a sponsored walk, can you sponsor us? And they can write a cheque for £10,000, and you think the difference that £10,000, which is one phone call of people that work with us regularly, can help the person who's trying to feed a family of 5 for £42. And connecting those two worlds, definitely the proudest thing I've done is getting everybody on board with that and working with Trussell to help support it.
And that all sparked from a conversation that you had with the lady.
Yeah. Yeah, and that we were spending £1,000, and I was questioning, do we really need to be spending that £1,000?
And now you've put so much more behind it and made so much more difference.
And just raised awareness of it, etc. So that's been a
that's
great
amazing.
thing out of the industry. So I mean, the property deals or anything that's buying or selling or letting or anything is
that
it's
just
always
shows
good
the
doing a deal.
humanist side behind it, doesn't it?
But it's that's exactly. And
but you've got these
communication.
assets. How
right.
can you support others? That's amazing.
And there were at one stage they very often get large donations of food and they've got nowhere to store it. And you think, gosh, we've got empty floors dotted here and yards here and there, so we've been able to store stuff. And it's been a really, really positive and such nice people that run Trussell, because they also do a lot of campaigning. They collect a lot of data about why people are in poverty, why they're having to access food banks. So they do a lot of work lobbying government and producing the data that helps underpin decisions to support. And again, we're connected with all our MPs and all the towns that we're stakeholders in. So it's been a nice tying up of all the bits.
Well done, you.
It's been good.
And
nice
I think
thing.
because you're a mother, you saw that need in her, and then I
can't think of anything
putting
worse.
your heart behind
Nothing
it.
to feed your children. I mean,
no, especially when you're doing everything you can, working.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well
It's been a nice thing.
That's lovely.
Thank you.
Trussell
is the organisation.
Okay.
Trussell Trust was what it was, and it's just rebranded as Trussell. So Google it.
Because we have a food bank next to my son's school.
Right.
Now it's not an area of poverty, but all the local volunteers were like, well, all this food is going to waste, so they bring it, and some of it's for free, and some of it's to sell, and all the children from school go there after school. But I'm like, well, is this the right place for it? Like,
I mean, the
they
need
don't
for
want
food banks
for waste.
has just continued to rocket. It rocketed during COVID. It's still continued to rocket. I mean, the statistics are really alarming. That you think in the country in which we're all living, that when there's not a food issue, it's a poverty issue. There's plenty of food. It's just the distribution of it. And that the Trussell's motive really is to close all the food banks. That everybody should have the dignity of being able to afford their own food. So it's been a wonderful thing to be part of, and such inspiring people that you meet, both those that are accessing the food bank, and those that work there and volunteer there. It's been really humbling.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's been good.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that.
That's
and doing something amazing.
Well, lots of people involved
Yeah.
as ever.
Oh, Emma, it's been so lovely to talk to you. You're really inspirational, and you managed to put rose-tinted glasses on everything. And I know the industry is challenged right now, but we need sparks like you to keep the fire lit and to keep that hope, because it's an amazing industry to be part of. I've spoken to some fascinating people, and we just we need to get more people into it to realise the potential.
Well, I've been very lucky in lots of respects, but actually I'm lucky I enjoy what I do, that I still enjoy what I do, jump out of bed in the morning, but I also that I see a real bright future for lots of people coming through the industry, that they'll continue to enjoy the whole property industry. So long may it continue. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Emma. Thank
You're
you.
very welcome.